Every once in a while, we come across a man who's on a man on a mission to learn how to be a better dad. I hope that's why we are all here, is because we want to become better, more present, stronger, healthier, more committed husbands and fathers. Well, my guest today is Brendan Wall. And Brendan is a man on a mission, a man committed to growth as a father. But he didn't just commit to his own growth, he committed to helping other men grow. Brendan is the host of the Dad the Man podcast, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. And he is here today to let you know that you are not alone in this journey of fatherhood. Many times I've come on here and said, I am not the expert. And Brendan will be quick to say he is not the expert. But together we have a conversation today about what it means to be a man who is committed to putting in the work to become a dad making a difference. You're going to enjoy this one. Here is my conversation with Brendan Wall. Brendan, welcome to the Dads Making a Difference podcast. Great to see you.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate the invitation. I was telling you before we hit record here, it's an honor to be able to come on here and have a conversation with you. You know, the opportunity to just chat about being a dad and the ins and outs of it, man. We go through so many of the same things, and it's so easy to forget that. So to be able to come together with you, have a conversation, I'm super excited for it.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We're both passionate about this. I came across your podcast and I was like, oh man, I got to get this guy on. I love your messaging. I love how real you are. Not to mention that, the Dad and the Man podcast is pretty kick ass, so it's pretty good. So if you're listening to this, right after you listen to this episode, you're going to go check out Brendan's stuff. But Brendan, I'm pumped to get into a conversation about fatherhood with you because we're both passionate about helping dads, but you come to it from such a unique perspective. I'd love for you to share a little bit with our guys here about you and why you got into this, because some guys will start from, they have their origin story, right? We've heard it before.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But you came into this a little bit different. So why don't you share your story with us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I'll try to not be too long-winded, but, long story short on me, I grew up with just an unbelievable childhood. Idealistic, best parents in the world. My brother and I, one younger brother, we're still best friends, like best family dynamic ever. So fortunate in that I had, you hear a lot of guys who have the example of what not to be when they grow up based on what they see from within their own home. And that was not me. I had the example to follow. So I was very fortunate in that regard. I met my wife in college. We met at Auburn University. We dated for a short time. Right after school, we wasted no time in getting married. That was, just a no-brainer for me. So we got married right out of school, and I had these plans. Just, I wanted to work X amount of years, get to this point in my career, have this much money in the bank before starting a family. I had this plan. It was about 5 years. I remember telling my wife, okay, if you can just give me 5 years, like I know I can get us to a good spot, it'll be great. And, I'll be ready to take this on. Mm-hmm. And, what they say, like, tell God your plans, he's going to laugh at you and give you something different, right? Something better. Yeah. And about 5 days later, I came home and there was a positive pregnancy test sitting on the table. And we found out that, we were going to be welcoming our first son into the world. And of course, like, didn't fit the plan that I had in my head, but you hear so much about infertility and different things like that. So just a blessing from God that it did play out that way. Of course, I was very excited. I started feeling the natural, like, provide for the family. Let's get after it. Let's hustle. Like my 5-year window, I was like, okay, I got to do it all in a year. I got to condense it before the baby gets here. You know what I mean? And I felt all that. And that's okay. Like, that's a great thing. That's a wonderful thing. We should strive to provide for our families. Like, it shouldn't be this, like, choose one or the other. You can do both well. I just didn't do one either. Like, I didn't do them both well. Work kind of became the outlet for me. I want to provide for my family. And I kind of got stuck into that to the point where I couldn't really disconnect when I wasn't at work. So, and that wasn't intentional, and I don't think from the outside looking in, anybody would say, oh, you weren't a great husband, you weren't a great dad, whatever. But like, I knew in my heart that I wasn't. Like, I knew that, like, even when I was coming home and I was talking to my wife, talking to my kids, or talking to, holding my son at that time. I wasn't talking to him too much. He was, a couple months old, but I was still just had that door open to my inbox in the back of my mind. You know what I mean? Just couldn't quite disconnect that. Fast forward a little, we had another son. A couple years later, welcomed my son Brooks into the world, and kind of just felt a little bit more of that pressure, and just work was so tangible for me. Like, I knew that there were not necessarily easy wins, but quantifiable wins. I knew, like, when the project gets done, when you get to this point in your career, when you make this amount of money, when you close this sale, whatever it is, it's tangible, it's quantifiable, it's easier to get a win, to say I did it, I checked the box, I'm moving on. So I naturally gravitated a bit more towards that. Whereas at home, you don't really get that feedback in the same way, right? You don't get that when bedtime goes really smooth, or you have a great moment with your wife. All amazing things, all things that we should pursue, but it's less of a tangible thing. And I just lost sight of that in that time. I was a bit directionless. And man, I just ended up, you fast forward that a little bit into the COVID time period, and I was really forced to sit still. I was forced to sit at home, and God pinned me down, and he said, hey, look at this. This is the life that you're missing. I realized that I saw everything that was missing at the breakfast table in the mornings because I was going to work early. I saw everything that was missing throughout the day, to and from the activities, the lunchtime, the arts and crafts, the laughs, the moments, the memories, the walking for the first time, all those things that happened throughout the day. I saw all of that. I saw the things at dinner time that I was missing, and at bath time and getting ready for bed, the things that I was missing because, one, I was either coming home late, I was staying at the office, or two, I was coming home and I wasn't emotionally in the game. I was just distracted. And I saw all that and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss this. Is flying by. I'm going to miss this. I'm going to look back in 10 years. My kids aren't going to be at this point, 3 and 5. They're going to be 13 and 15, and they're going to be off to the races, about to start driving. And then they're not going to give a damn about spending time with me anyway. And that really haunted me, like, immediately. Like, I know that was divine intervention in my life, and I believe that to my core. And from that, I had all these ideas, like, okay, I want to pass this thought on. I want to help other people have this same lesson, or pass this along to everybody. And I thought about business, thought about all these things. My wife just said one day, why don't you just start a podcast? You're always talking about podcasts. You could talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. And I think in her mind, she was like, you can stop talking to me about podcasts and all these things. You can just do it on your own show. So I said, you know what? When I heard that, dude, it scared me. It excited me all at the same time. And I said, all right, let's go. So I bought a course from Travis Chappell. I don't know if anybody here follows him, but I did one of his courses to get up and rolling, and sunk some money into it. So I had some sunk costs to weigh me down to stay committed to it. And man, I just started rolling from there, started reaching out to people. And the whole idea of the show of Dad the Man is just, man, let's just bring on guys that we all know and love and respect and look up to for what they do professionally, whether they be athletes, authors, entrepreneurs, whatever it is, right? Guys we know from social media, from TV, movies, whatever. Let's bring them on and let's just have a conversation about what it's like in their home, in the day to day. Like, I was just talking to Rich Froning the other day on the show, and we were talking about taking kids on vacations, and he said it so well. He said something to the effect of, like, it was a disaster, but it was great. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yeah. I was like, immediately, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about, because we all know what it's like to try to take it's an away game. You're just taking your kids to parent them somewhere else to some extent, right? But he gave some great insights on how to approach that. But I say all that just to say, we go through so many of the same things as men, as husbands, as dads. And I'm really just trying to pull that red thread that is strung between all of us, and say, hey, we're all having this shared experience. We're in this thing together, and just trying to highlight that for people so that they don't feel like they're on an island. Like I thought I was on one myself. So, man, it's been a journey of personal development and exploration, and it's been a heck of a ride so far. I've had a lot of fun with it, to say the least.
I love it. What I admire about your approach, Brennan, is that you come to this looking for information, looking to learn, looking to grow, have these conversations with guys who are just, we might see them as, like athletes, celebrities, successful, you name it. And you come to it just being real. Like, hey, this guy's a dad, just like I am, struggles with the same things I do. and you're just real in your conversation. I want to just let you know that I appreciate that about you. It's not coming to it as an expert, as a know-it-all, which too often we've seen. Hey, yeah,
I appreciate that. That's
yeah,
I say it all the time on the show. I'm like, trust me, I am not the guy with all the
yeah,
answers. I am in search of them, trying to
yeah.
figure it out, but I am definitely not the guy with all the answers. So yeah, that means a lot to me to hear that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know that selfishly, I do this as well to learn from the people who come on. I take so many notes and learn so much from each conversation, and I'm sure it will be the same with this. Can I circle back to something that you shared? You shared a couple of things, just sharing your story. You talked about having plans. We had a plan. We're going to get married. There's going to be this 5-year window. We're going to make sure that we have stability. You use that word, and I know that
Mm-hmm.
probably is financial stability, life
Yep.
stability. We've had our experiences. Why are we so eager to make plans? Because I, Kim and I have been married now 12 years. I got to get that right. Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah,
Yeah,
12
don't
years.
mess that up.
No, no, couldn't mess that up. Just recently had an anniversary, about 12 years. And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Maya, my 11-year-old daughter, we found out we were going to have Maya the morning of our wedding.
Oh my
That's when
goodness.
I found out I was going to be a dad, man.
Wow,
Uh,
that's a big
uh,
day.
yeah. So there's another
Wow.
backstory. There's another backstory to that too. But here's the thing: we can make plans, but God has a plan for our life. And you mentioned that. So why
Yep.
are we so eager as dads, as men, professionals who come from maybe a corporate background? Why are we so eager to plan everything?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing first and foremost, like to have a vision, to
Mm,
have a vision, a general direction. I think where we get ourselves into trouble is when we really try to identify where that vision and direction comes from. Like for me, my vision and direction was not rooted in my faith. It honestly, like me having to have that level of control really just exposed my lack of faith for the plan that God had for my life. And that's been the biggest thing that I have learned in my own development just from having kids and just trying to, I mean, all the things you think of that come just to keep a kid on the tracks from, my oldest is 6 now, and we got a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 9-month-old twins. Just it's a crazy ride, right? And at some point for me, I just recognized, okay, it's time that I stop trying to control everything because I can't. I can't, and I shouldn't. Like me trying to control, that need for control is evidence of my lack of faith. And I had to really look myself in the eyes in the mirror and recognize that, and then just submit to, like, God, I come to you with this. Like, you tell me where to go, and I'm going to be here to love my family in the best way that I can, lead them in the best way that I can. And, the vision and the direction that I have, I hold it much less tightly. It's much more loosely held now because I'm not the one really steering the ship, if that makes any sense. I'm
mm,
more, I kind of look at it more like God's calling the plays and I'm out there trying to run them as he calls them. But it's more of a play by play scenario than I think. I used to want everything. I wanted to see the big vision, right? I wanted to see
right.
things from start to finish. I wanted to see what that, if you want to keep the analogy going, look, see every play that was going to be called from the first snap of the game to the end of the fourth quarter. But in reality, I think in our faith, it works much more like, hey, you're going to get one play at a time, and that's it. And you got to trust that there's a game plan. You got to trust that the plays are going to work together, that there is a bigger vision, bigger than what you can see in front of you right now. And our only duty, our only obligation and responsibility is to go run. Maybe it's run the ball up the middle. Maybe it's throw a Hail Mary. It's going to be somewhere in between. We just got to run the play that's called for us at the right time. And the only way you know what the play is like for me. I've really rooted my life more recently. This is something I've really grown into more recently. So I don't, again, I don't want to make it sound like I've got everything figured out. But the last couple of months have really rooted my life much more deeply into a spiritual discipline of waking up in the morning, reading my Bible. And, I used to do it all the time. And then, you kind of get on the plan and then you fall off for a day or two and then you're off the plan. But for me, it's really just changed into like the discipline of doing it every day. Some days are going to feel more meaningful than others, but I have that connection with God, and I pray through that every single morning. And his voice becomes clearer and clearer to me the more that I do that. So I wanted to connect those dots there before I
Mm.
quit rambling.
Yeah, no, I
I can have a
appreciate
tendency
that.
to be a bit long winded here, so I
Yeah.
apologize.
And don't worry if I'll cut you off. Okay. I think like what you're sharing is impactful. And so you mentioned this level of control that we want to have, and we want to have it by crafting a vision for our life.
Mhm.
Now, you're very honest and saying you've been growing through this recently. This is something that you're being intentional about. Hey guys, I wanted to take a moment and talk about our community of DMD brothers in the DMD Mastermind. We are men who help each other to stay focused and intentional in our pursuits of personal, professional, physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual growth. We are a community of men who bring courage, wisdom, and transparency to unfiltered conversations that challenge us to be more impactful men, to be dads making a difference. We do this through our online and in-person events where men come together to speak into each other's lives and then turn around and do the deep work to create change in their families, in their businesses, and in the community around them. If you are wondering if this community might be right for you, you can find more information on the DMD Mastermind, and you can also book a call directly with me at dmdmastermind.com. Now, let's get back to our show. And it sounds like when you first started during this season, I just wrote down the season of providing. You needed to do it all in 1 year. You know, work was an outlet. You couldn't disconnect away from your work.
Mm-hmm.
How does this differ from a vision? How does providing and the drive to provide differ from having a vision for your life?
Well, I think that where you can really draw a line tactically is, the way that I think about it is trying to be as efficient with my time as possible and what's the word, stewarding the time that I have as best as possible. Everybody says be present where you are, be present where you are, be present where you are. And it's like, it's so trite and overplayed, but it's so freaking true. Like that is it. Like I've struggled with the work-life balance because oftentimes when I'm at home, I'm worried about work. I'm worried that I'm not doing enough. I'm worried that I haven't done what I need to do. And like, there's something else to do and I could make more money, whatever. And then when I'm at work, I'm like, oh man, I yelled at my son last night, or like bedtime didn't go well. And then I'm worried about that. But if we can just flip that and say, okay, when I'm at work, I am 100 miles an hour. I'm going to go for it. I am, I'm kicking ass. I'm disciplined. I'm in the game. I'm doing everything that I can do. And then when I'm at home, the same is true. Like if you're in two places at one time, you're nowhere. You're lost. It's watered down. And the same dynamic exists, I think, when we're on our cell phones at home too. Like, if you're sitting in the living room with your family, but you got Instagram pulled up, you're not with your family, and you're also not really with Instagram. You're just kind of scrolling through life, and you're gonna lose it. But I think it's that idea of stewarding your time. I think everybody would say, if you could have more time, you'd take it. But I think that's not really an option. So I think it's much more a game of let's steward the time that we have better. And the more that I focus on that, and again, it's so much easier said than done. And I go through phases now where it's, sometimes it's week to week, better one week, and then I'm off a little bit more the next week. And that's okay. It's more of the game of just calibrating it and being mindful of it, as you go. That's the way that I see it, at least.
And by being mindful of it, you're being intentional with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It serves a purpose.
Yep.
That if you're stewarding your time, you're in control of your time. And when you're in control of your time, you just operate more efficiently. You really do.
So you got to control the things that you can control, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that we cannot control. And those are often the things that we worry about the most, but we don't even think about the things that we can control that we're not. Like we don't think about what time what does our routine look like at the end of the day? Like I know for me the days when I go to bed, I go ahead and set the coffee pot up. I go ahead and set out my Bible and my notebook. I go ahead and set out my clothes. I set out the cup of ice water that I can chug right when I get up. When I do those 3, 4, 5 things in the evening, and I can control that, right? Like that's not necessarily going to produce a tangible result, but it is going to put me on the path to achieving the things that I want to achieve and being the person that I want to be. So if I can control that, I'm going to wake up on time. I'm going to nail my morning. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to read my Bible. I am probably going to work on something for the podcast, and I'm going to do all these things. And by the time my family wakes up, I'm a different person. Like I'm the best version of me that I could possibly be on that day. If I do those things that I know I need to do, if I can control those things that I know I need to control. And I know that, but like today I didn't do them. Just hand raised. I didn't do them. And I started off running towards third base today. I ran the wrong, it was just one of those mornings. And this whole morning, I've kind of been climbing myself out of the hole of, gosh, I'm not on my A game today. Why not? It's because I didn't control the things that I could control. I didn't get up. I didn't read my Bible this morning and work out. I slept in and it just didn't happen. And then I wasn't the person that I needed to be. So if we can just get to a place where we're disciplined enough to control the things that we can control and let enough time go by, then I think, we're going to be in a much better place than if we don't. I can tell you that.
You said a word there that a lot of people are scared of, and it's being disciplined.
Yeah.
Being disciplined to be able to take control and do what you need to do. Man, I struggle with this. I come into this office and I can sit here and easily get sidetracked on scrolling this or sending this message or away from what I actually need to do. And I think as men, we struggle with that. But it's interesting because we're talking about stewarding time, and this is something you've learned and something you've worked on, you're being intentional about, but this also connects to that awakening moment you had when work was all consuming. And you said that there was a moment of stillness where you were forced to sit still during a period of time where your eyes were open and like, whoa, wait a second. I'm missing out.
Yeah.
I'm missing out. What did you learn about the power of stillness? We were all forced into stillness. But what did you learn personally as a dad and as a husband through that time?
Man, one of the things I've learned, and it happened in that moment. It's something I found through running more recently. A lot of people meditate, but we have to give ourselves space. Like space it's a necessary thing for us to process our thoughts. If you think about just inputs and outputs, think about all the inputs that come in during the day. Like, and just think about today versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago. Like, you think about the things we see on TV, the things that just things that are in our own home. Then you think about, like, every time you go to the bathroom, you take in your phone with you and you're pulling up Instagram, you're pulling up Twitter, you're pulling up TikTok, and you're scrolling, and it's constantly in. At some point, like, you have no direction because you're filling your brain. It's crowded. You can't possibly think clearly. It's just system overload. It's not possible to interpret all of that very well over time. It's not for me, at least. I've found that to be absolutely true. But if you can give yourself some space where you are, sometimes it takes some courage to sit alone with your own thoughts, because sometimes we have emotions and feelings that come from our experiences that we don't necessarily want to sit with. And sometimes we have to look ourselves in the eye. Like that day when I was sitting there and I was like, I'm not happy with the direction this is going. And this is on me. Like, the hand raised. I don't like what I've been doing, and I don't like who I'm going to be if I keep doing this. And I think if we can have the courage to sit with that and own that, it's our best shot to move forward in a better direction. Ignorance isn't bliss. I can tell you that. And you're not going to know if you're ignorant, or how ignorant you are, I should say, because I think we all are to some extent, but you won't know how ignorant you are if you're not willing to at least sit still with your own thoughts. And, I found that day. I find that in prayer on a daily basis, and running is a hobby that I've picked up more recently, and I love it for that reason. It's solitude, it's space. Sometimes I throw on some music and like really get after it and run hard, but more often than not, I just want to give my brain my heart the opportunity to process, just take a break, and just clear the operating system a little bit. And then at that point, that's where my best direction and points of clarity come from. Those are the moments when I hear God's voice, to tie that back into what I was talking about before.
Right.
I don't hear God's voice when I'm scrolling on Instagram, or I'm watching TV, or just in this low frequency state of mind. But in that space, if you can sit still in it long enough, those are the times when I hear God's voice and direction in my heart.
You've shared a lot of things that you've learned to do, right? Managing your time, being disciplined, taking control, going for the run, creating space. To bring these together, I think one of the best things you do in your podcast is you bring together like simple steps that people can do that are realistic, right? So these guys come on, your guests come on, and they share. We look at them as experts, and they share like real life stories, but actionable things that you can implement right now. Going through what you're going through right now, as a dad of young kids and growing through this alone as a father, because we are alone as a father. We're in I'm the only dad in my house right now, and there's times where you can feel isolated. What has pushed you to do the work? And what are some tips you can give to a couple guys listening to step up and do the work?
Yeah, well, I mean, for anybody with kids, your kids are watching you, and you know that because you know that everybody's had that moment where your kids say something, you're like, where the heck did you get that from? And then you think about it for a minute, and you're like, dang it, that came from me for sure. They are
Yeah.
watching every single thing
Yeah.
that we do, and in the like, just to be very clear and transparent about, like in my morning routine, when I read my Bible and I write down a few things, and I write down, be the man that God created me to be the husband that I vowed that I would be for my wife, be the man for my three sons to model, be the man who sets the bar for my daughter, and be the man who leads his family and everybody he encounters towards Christ. And then under that, I write they're watching. And I write that every day. And it gives me chills even just to say that, because that's my reminder daily that it's not about me. Like, I know that God put me where I am for a reason. Um, but it's not for my glory, it's for his glory. And the best way that I can honor that is to lead the people that, I've been given responsibility over. Right. So that from a why standpoint, like I remind myself of that daily. As far as things that people can do every day, like, if there's a couple things that I think we just at a fundamental level have to recognize. One, this is an imperfect game. There's no perfect dad. There's no perfect blueprint. Nobody's going to bat 1,000. It's going to look more like your success rate as a dad. I think we have to recognize it's going to look more like a batting average than it is a free throw shooting percentage. Like, it's just the nature of the game. But I think, how can we catch ourselves in those moments where we're getting down on ourselves? Like, I beat myself up like crazy if I say I snap at my son, and I know that I shouldn't, and I know that I'm not, like, I tell myself I'm not going to do this again, and I'm telling myself in the moment I'm not about to do it, I'm not about to do it, and then I do it. And I'm like, dang it!
Yeah.
Like, we all have those moments, and I think we just have to be quick to not forget them, but forgive ourselves for them. And something that I'm a huge fan of is, I think in the military, they call them after action reviews. You could call it like a quick audit. Like, just think about it. What happened in the scenario that led to me, snapping at my son? Clearly, it's first, we have to recognize it's not something that my son did. It's something that I'm outside of my skill set. I need to get better. Like, I think that's a fundamental shift that we have to make. We can't say my son made me so mad that I yelled. We have to say I got pushed outside my skill set. I have to get better. How do we get better? Man, I think it goes back to controlling the things that we can control. Like, are you getting up in the morning? Are you getting in the word, or whatever that practice may look like for you? But for me, that's non-negotiable. Are you exercising? Like, are you oxygenating the blood in your body that is actually going to make you a happier, better person that's going to vibrate at a better frequency? Are you doing the things that you need to do, handling your other responsibilities, so that when your kids wake up, when the day actually starts, when like, you're ready to welcome them into the world, like, you are ready for that? And most of the times when I have the moments where I end up getting hard on myself, I'm like, dang it, I shouldn't have done that. I can tie it back to, like, what have my last 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 days looked like. And somewhere along the way, I've kind of fallen off the rails. And then I have to go back to that and say, okay, I have to get back to basics. I have to get back to what I can control. And it's not necessarily direct. So sometimes I feel like people don't want to believe it, but being the best version of ourselves and making sure that we're intentional with it gives us the best opportunity for success with whatever life or our, stubborn kids throw at us.
Man, powerful stuff. I wrote this down. I got pushed outside my skill set and I need to get better. You know, all that screams to me is ownership. Taking ownership over your journey. I have these 3 pillars on my wall: know your why, aim for growth, and take ownership. And without the ownership piece, we're not going to get better. We're
Right.
we're not going to learn. We're not going to grow. We'll feel stuck. And everything you've shared so far in this conversation, I think, just comes back to this theme of ownership. There's periods in your life you just decide, I'm taking ownership over this. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to do this and own this. So, man, good on you. Like, I know you would
I
never say that you're
appreciate
an
it.
expert, but the guys who are listening to this right now are learning from you. Guys who are listening to this right now can hear in your voice and in your story that, hey, I can do this too. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability in sharing that.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's funny. I said something on my podcast the other day. Basically, like, I feel like everything I share on here is all the things I've done wrong. I don't often share, like, hey, there's something. Hey, I did great today. You know what I mean? But I actually I can't even remember what the episode was at this point, but I shared something where I was like, this feels a little bit weird because I feel like I'm normally just like, guys, I did it again. Here,
Yeah.
don't do what I did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is learn from other people's mistakes, right?
Yeah. Speaking about learning, what is one area of growth that you're excited about right now or you're digging into as a dad?
Man, I think it's really, I mean, it's real. Number one, it's the things that I've been talking about. Like I told you, I'm not somebody that has always had this kind of figured out. I wouldn't say I've got it figured out now, but I think one, it's just that discipline of trying to be consistent and being the best, giving myself to be the best version of myself every single day, controlling what I can control. And my spiritual growth is as strong as it's ever been in my life right now. So I'm very excited about that. I'm in this place now. So I told you I've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and now we have 9-month-old twins. It's been a crazy, crazy ride. Like, not to go too long-winded on the story, but we adopted the twins, wild ride, 2-year journey up and down. And the dust has finally settled to an extent. So we're settling down now. Everything's finalized, and summer has been crazy, and we're the kids are about to start school again, and we in the back of our heads we've kind of always thought like, okay, we're gonna get to this point and the dust is gonna settle, and then it's gonna be like, then we're gonna be able to relax, then we're gonna be able to make time for date night, then we're gonna be able to make time for one-on-one time with our kids. And one of the things I've really been focused on very, very recently, and this is where I have to get better. Like, this is not something that I've implemented well to this point, but I'm excited about getting better about it, is just recognizing that no matter like what's like, there is no period of the dust settling. That is an illusion. That is the mirage in the desert. That's the Coke vending machine that you see on the other hill in the desert. Like, that period of time doesn't exist. I think in my head, it's subconsciously just think when it's easier, I'll do it. But it's just, I think, really just a game of fighting for our priorities and recognizing that it's okay that it's a fight. You know what I mean? Like, if we don't prioritize our lives, it's going to prioritize itself. And it's showing up every day and going to work and saying, you know what, honey, you and I are going to go on a date night tonight. Damn it. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how little money we have left in the checking account for the week. I don't care, how busy the kids are. We're going to do this. And that's where I've got to grow, to be quite honest. And that's what I'm excited about.
Life wasn't meant to be boring. Life is exciting. It pushes us each day. And, for you to grow through that right now, congratulations on the finalization of the adoption. I know that I've had friends who've gone through that, and man, that can be quite the process. So,
oh yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a heck of a ride and wouldn't change a thing, but yeah, heck of a ride. That's for sure.
Incredible. Brandon, if somebody wants to connect with you, learn more about you, or listen to your podcast, where can they do that?
Well, first, man, I just want to say thanks. Like I said at the beginning, it's an honor, it's a privilege to get to come on here and have a conversation with you and, share some of my thoughts. I tell my team at work all the time that I process my thoughts so much better out loud. So I can't even tell you how helpful and therapeutic and this gives me so much direction and energy to be able to come on it and really just articulate some thoughts out loud. So first of all, thank you for doing this. Thank you for holding the space. Thank you for leading men in the way that you do. You're doing tremendous work, and I'm thankful that you're doing it. If you guys want to check me out, you can find me on Instagram. It's at dad.the.man. The podcast is called Dad the Man. That's really going to be the best place to find me. Apple, Spotify, wherever else. We're not on YouTube yet, working on that, but anywhere else you should be able to find the show. If you can't find it, DM me on Instagram. I respond to every DM. So yeah, we've got some really great episodes out there, guys, that you probably know, from Jordan Spieth, Tim Kennedy, Stipe Miocic, and Sean Lowe and Eric Decker. We've got an amazing list of guys that have donated their time to serving the folks who listen to our show, and nobody's benefited more, hand raised, than me, because I get to ask them very specific questions that serve me, but I assume that if it serves me, it'll serve others. So if you want to check that out, that'd be awesome. But yeah, man, thanks again for holding this space. I've really enjoyed this today.
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words. I wish you all the best as you move forward. I want to stay connected with you. You got an amazing thing going. But again, thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks.